Hey there, this is John Shannon with JamPlay.com. We're going to get started here in this lesson discussing the true rock rhythm guitar player's toolbox. Now, with rock music, it's true you generally just need a guitar and an amp, but there's a few things that are definitely going to help you rock a little bit harder. First off, and very, very importantly, is the metronome. To be a true rock rhythm guitar player, you got to have great rhythm, and you want to build great rhythm, and you want to get used to playing with a metronome. Also, the amplifiers you use. If you use a low watt amp, say 50 watts or less, it's going to break up. It's going to give you that rock tone. Those are good things to be aware of, good things to experiment with. Say you have a high watt amp, like a Fender Twin. That's where your pedals are going to come in to really help you get that rock tone, that break-up sound, that driven sound. And at that point, you want to know the difference between an overdrive pedal and a distortion pedal. Also, even what pick you use can affect your tone, your sound, and generally speaking, you don't want to use a pick that's too light because you don't want it to break in half while you're rocking, because let's face it, your thumb is not going to rock as hard. And then, of course, a tuner. You always want to have a tuner on hand. You always want to be in tune, because when you're the rhythm guitar player, you're driving the band, you're supporting the lead guitar, you're supporting the singer, and you got to be in tune to help them sound great, to help them play as great as they can. All right, let's discuss the metronome. Again, the metronome is very important because it gets you used to playing in time, as they say. And let's face it, all the great musicians in any style of music are great because they have great rhythm. Even with solo ideas, songwriting, etc., it takes great rhythm to clarify those ideas. So you can use a physical metronome. You can use an app. There's plenty of metronome apps for your smartphone. If you're working with different software on your computer, there are metronomes within those programs as well. So again, I can't stress enough the importance of the metronome as a rhythm player. Also, the point is, when you have great rhythm, you're going to be free to rock that much harder. All right, now let's discuss amplifiers for rock music and for the rock rhythm player. It's key to know the difference between a low wattage amp and a higher wattage amp. You have your older amplifiers like an old Vox, an old Marshall. These were made at like 50 watts and lower. And that's where a lot of the reference of great rock tone came from all the classic players, Hendrix, Townsend, the Stones, because they were able to break that amp up with the preamp knob against the volume knob. When you're using those kind of amps, you can get your rock tone pretty much right away. Now, a higher wattage amp, 80 watts and above, your Fender Twin, the amps that even on 3, it's almost too loud. That's when you're going to want to bring in pedals, overdrive, distortion, to help drive that high watt amp. Okay, so let's talk about the two important pedals to the true rock rhythm guitar player. You have your overdrive pedal and you have your distortion pedal. The overdrive pedal and sound is going to give you more of a lightly broken up sound. Kind of like this. more of there's a clarity there. Now you have your distortion pedal, which is going to involve more saturation. It has tended to be used for some of the more modern hard rock, I would say, whereas the overdrive lends itself more to the classic old school stuff. So here's more of the sound of the distortion. So as you can hear with the distortion, there's more saturation. So again, either one is right. It's just your preference. You want to be aware of these two different angles. All right, now you wouldn't think it would be that important. It's a little bit nitpicky, but the pick is important for rocking. Mainly, you don't want to choose a pick that's too light because it'll break right in the middle of rocking. And again, let's face something else. Let's face the rocking is about playing hard, you know? You want to put some energy, some pressure into it. But it's also good just to be aware of the difference of sound and texture that you get. All right, so for example, this is the sound of a pick that's 1 millimeter in width, because we're talking about width, not colors or anything, but width. And these, the width is going to affect the sound. It's about 1 millimeter here. All right, so it's digging in. When I play it, it feels like I've got something to work with. Now let's jump down to, this is 0.58 millimeter. Now it's just a little bit more elasticy. Really, the difference is going to be more in the feel than the sound, especially when you have an overdriven tone like this. All right? Now let's look at one more pick. Now this is going heavy towards 1 millimeter. This is 0.96. Let's see if you can hear the difference here. My suggestion is the heavier the pick, the better. For I prefer a warmer tone that I can mess with on the amp or on the pedal rather than having to work from a lighter tone. But, again, these are the necessary elements of the rock rhythm guitar player's toolbox for you to experiment with and just to be aware of. And these are the elements of the rock rhythm guitar player's toolbox. They are there for you to be aware of and to figure out what works for you so that you can get the tone, the sound, and the feel that helps you to rock the hardest. All right, last but not least in the rock rhythm guitar player's toolbox is having a tuner. You always want to have a tuner on hand, maybe a headstock clip or a foot stomp box tuner, because you always want to stay in tune. Again, like I was saying before, being in tune as the rhythm guitar player is such a key element because you are the center of the music. You're driving the bass, you're driving the drums. There's a guitar solo happening up top. There's a singer singing. And in a way, you're the center. And if you're in tune, also people can gauge their own tuning around you. So really, being a rock rhythm guitar player has a lot to do with being the center of the music and holding that ground and helping everything to rock as much as possible. So yeah, always be checking your tuning as much as you can. As much as you can think of it, check it again. Because staying in tune is a key part to the whole circle of rocking out. All right, and one more thing that is a very key element to your toolbox of being a true rock rhythm guitar player is inspiration. Inspiration can come from many places, but for rock and roll, a big part of it for me has been listening to all the greats, spending time going through records, going through music, Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, Black Sabbath, see all the differences, and seeing how their tone works for them, how their rhythm works, the different styles that they bring into rock and roll, the different ways they feed the overall music. And that when you start listening to that and you start really giving that an appreciation, you start bringing it into your own playing, and you create an inspiration circle where then your own playing starts to inspire you. And that's really what we're moving towards. Playing rhythm, being inspired by your sound, being inspired by the energy that you're a part of and that you're creating, so that you can just rock out that much harder and that much longer. All right, so that wraps up our lesson talking about the tools needed in your toolbox for becoming a true rock rhythm guitar player. Definitely keep these things in mind as we progress in this course. They're just going to help feed all the lessons that we continue to work with. Next up, we're going to discuss what I consider the 3 rock tempo zones. All right, so I'll see you there.